So, does anybody know what these two have in common? Does anybody know what these two have in common? What do these two devices have in common? What do these two devices have in common? What do they have in common? Come on, people. Leave me some comments. What do these two devices have in common? What do they have in common? What do they have in common? What do these two devices have in common? What do they got in common? What do these two devices have in common?
Tuesday night, northwest winds 15 to 20 knots with gusts up to 25 knots. Waves 2 to 3 feet. Wednesday, northwest winds 15 to 20 knots, diminishing to around 10 knots after midnight. Waves around 2 feet. Thursday, northwest winds around 10 knots, becoming southwest. Waves around 2 feet or less, then around 2 feet overnight. Friday, northwest winds 10 to 15 knots, diminishing to 5 to 10 knots after midnight. Waves around 2 feet, then 1 foot or less. Here is the official National Weather Service forecast for the coastal waters of Maryland, issued at 4:10 p.m., Sunday, February 11th. Tonight, north winds 5 to 10 knots. To 10 knots. Waves 1 foot or less. Rain likely. Areas of fog. Visibility 1 to 3 nautical miles Monday night. East winds 10 to 15 knots with gusts up to 40 knots. Seas 3 to 5 feet. Building to 3 feet. Southeast swell 2 to 5 feet at 4 seconds. Becoming south at 5 seconds in the afternoon. Rain likely in the morning. 4 feet. Tuesday night, northwest winds 15 to 20 knots with gusts up to 25 knots. Seas 4 to 7 feet. Wednesday, southeast swell 2 to 5 feet at 5 seconds, becoming northwest at 3 seconds after midnight. Wednesday, northwest winds 15 to 20 knots, diminishing to 10 to 15 knots overnight. Seas 4 to 6 feet, subsiding to 2 to 4 feet overnight. Thursday, northwest winds around 10 knots, becoming southwest. Seas 2 to 4 feet. Friday, northwest winds 15.
So what do these two things have in common? What do they got in common, folks? What do these things have in common? What do they got in common? What do these two things have in common? What do they got in common, folks? What do they got in common? What do they have in common that the other ones really don't have in common? What do these two things have in common? Come on, folks. What do they got in common here? What do they got in common here? These two things have the exact thing in common. What do they have in common, folks? What do they got in common? I'd like to know.